Get ready to get inspired. This is the Go for the Goldie podcast.
Hello, it's Friday, August 21st, 2020. Thanks for spending your pregame here on a Friday with us. I'm joined today by Ian Brunner, Twitch affiliate, based out of Georgia. Ian, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing very well. Thanks for joining us here. I know it's a Friday night, so I know you got probably some banging plans, so appreciate the time hanging out with us here on the podcast.
Yeah, wouldn't be anywhere else.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So you're based in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, we're originally from Buffalo, but I've been in Atlanta for about a year now.
Nice, and that's a great lead-in right there because that's exactly why I wanted to have you on the show. You know, this is only episode 12, so a lot of the people that I've had on the show are people that are in my little network and things I have in common with. So I forgot how we exactly came in contact with each other. Probably just I kind of creep on Twitter and find people that seem to be really excited about being Twitch affiliates, and I came across you, but then you mentioned you were from Buffalo. I'm like, oh yeah, we definitely got to get him on the show.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know I tweeted something about. I think it was either the Buffalo Bills or the Buffalo Sabres, and you saw it, and then I looked at my messages and you had messaged.
Maybe that was it. Yeah, it makes even more sense. Talk about the Bills because that's all over my timeline. What part of Buffalo are you from?
I'm from Lockport, so like a half hour outside of it.
Yeah. I went to Kenmore East, so you guys were in
okay.
We played you guys in all the sports, so very familiar with Lockport. Yeah. So when did you move to Atlanta?
Well, my girlfriend works in government down here, so I was at UB and about a year ago, and I was doing my master's, and I was just like, if I just power through and do my master's in like a year and a half, I can just move down to Georgia, finally get out of my mom's house.
Yep, that's always the goal, right? It's how you're doing life well when you get out of your mom's house.
Yeah.
How do you like it down there?
I mean, the city, like Atlanta, is really nice. I'm not a warm weather person, so like the past month and a half have been kind of brutal. It's the first real summer I've been here.
Mm-hmm.
But now that it's cooling down a little bit again, I'm more comfortable.
That humidity down there is brutal.
Yeah. It's
I'm
not
like
okay.
I'm in Texas, and I lived in Charlotte for a couple years, so we'd head down to Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
And a couple times here and there I went to a Sabres game actually when the Thrashers were a thing, and it's just that humidity makes it feel just so much hotter. So I feel your pain right now, but it'll get cooler. You can laugh at Buffalo in the winter, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing is I was talking to people here. I don't know, it must have been February, and it snowed for 20 seconds. You could just see some snow in the air, and everyone was freaking out.
Oh yeah,
and then I showed them some.
Everything closes down when it's in the forecast. Doesn't even have to snow.
Yeah, well, we were at work, and I pulled out my phone, and even the customers had stopped to look, and I was like, "You guys want to see some pictures from the Blizzard of '77?" And they were like, "Oh God, no."
I show people those pictures of people standing able to touch the stoplights in the middle of the intersection and stuff, and
yeah,
you see people's brains break. It's like, how can it snow? They might, whatever. Just another day.
Yeah.
So I was actually, when you said you went to UB, on your Twitter profile, associates in theater, bachelor's in English, masters of education. So you are a learned individual, huh?
I try, and I got my master's in education just so if I'm not very, I don't want to call myself I don't fit well into normal job fields, I don't like the 9 to 5 job.
Ditto.
It gets to me after a while.
Ditto.
But I got the master's just in case I ever really needed a job where I could get, serious money on a schedule.
Just casually go out and get your master's. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. But it's kind of something that also I consider education. I think every single day, if you're doing something right, you learn something interesting. So I'd like to create some kind of, and I've talked about this with my friends, a Twitch, not necessarily like a full-time education channel, but like something similar to a podcast where you discuss like, something new in science or something. So I'm trying to make my master's into something I use.
That's really cool. And I think that goes to that like American ingenuity. We're always thinking of new creative ways I mean, that's what I love about our country is it's like it definitely is the land of opportunity. You can make money doing basically anything. It's how
Mm.
creative you want to get, and like how so it's really cool that you're putting that idea, that education that you've had, and trying to carve like a new path. And I mean, obviously, I'm doing something like that on here. It's something completely different than what you are, but still the same. And that's really
Yeah.
like this is something that's evolving, as time goes on. Originally I started this show to interview people who are, and I don't know if you know anything about the show, but what I do is I started off with high level, semi-pro, amateur athletes. So people who compete at the highest level of, these sports, but still have to maintain, to they have to get a job. They have to maintain
Mm.
a job to, keep food on the table. And so it's obviously they're doing this outside of their work hours, so it's something they're very passionate about. And I think speaking with passionate people rubs off and can really have a positive effect in society. And I kind of parlayed my love of sports, and I'm a triathlete, into Zwift, and that's how I became a Switch affiliate. Is I stream all my workouts on Zwift, and I make it interactive, and I play with people who watch, and
Mm.
they get to see my workouts are all structured, so you see them on the screen. So when people think Twitch, they don't necessarily think you know exercise,
Yeah.
but I mean sports and fitness is a whole separate category aside. Zwift is its own thing on here. Um,
Mm.
but what you're saying, starting I think Twitch is so big. It's an interesting dichotomy because I think it's really big. Obviously, it is, but at the same time, I think it has so much potential as to where it's going. It's still. I think I'd argue it's still not mainstream. You could walk on the streets and ask people what Twitch are, and like everyone knows what Facebook is, but not everyone knows what Twitch is. So that's why I think I see a lot of opportunity, and that's where I think the value in my show is talking to people like yourself who are, a Twitch affiliate. To me is someone who is, invested enough in it to where you're putting a lot of time in, but you're not, this isn't your full-time gig. So, you're looking for the growth. You're looking for different
Mm.
ways to kind of carve your niche. That's why, like a partner, yeah, they've found their niche, so they may not be, they're kind of settled in. You know what I mean? So it's just it'd be a different discussion I'd be having with people who are Twitch partners as opposed to Twitch affiliates. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking about this when you first messaged me. I was like, why did I start streaming? Like, I don't know. And I was like, well, I remember being like, I think I was 5 when Pokemon Red first came out in America. And, I got the Game Boy for Christmas and I started playing Pokemon. And my mom would always say, like, years later, she'd be like, man, if I hadn't gotten you that Game Boy, you probably would have been outside a lot more playing and, like, you'd be like completely different. And I was like, yeah, but I also, at the time, there were people who were like, beta testers who were paid to play video games. And I was
Mhm.
like, that's the job I wanted. And I was like, how am I going to get a job in video games ever? And fast forward 15, 20 years, people are playing video games on the internet as like a form of entertainment for other people. And have you ever heard of the podcast? Now my brain is breaking. Not
Pressure's
this
on, Ian.
convers.
Pressure's on.
Yeah. Well, I want to say it's conversations with people who hate me, but it's not that one. It's by the Welcome to Night Vale people. Just give me a sec. I'm just gonna look it up.
No, no, that's cool. But you're right. It is wild to think about um, just how far this whole world of video games have come. I mean, it's almost to the point now where it's cliche to say, "Remember when your mom told you you couldn't make money playing video games?"
Yeah.
It's because you hear that so much because you look at someone like Tim the Tatman, winning
Mhm.
Fall Guy. He did it was the number 2 trending topic on Twitter yesterday. That goes
Yeah,
to show
yeah.
you, how much people are invested in watching other people play games. And
Mhm.
did you find the name of that? I saw you look at your
Oh
phone.
yeah. It's start with this. It's like because they're full-time writers, so it's their podcast about like, generating your own creative ideas and writing stuff out and you're actually doing something instead of just thinking about an idea all the time.
Oh, that's cool.
But they they talk about like you can have your hobby,
Mhm.
which like you have usually if you have a hobby, you also kind of want to monetize it in some way, which
Mhm.
is good, but it can be like a burnout topic too. If like my long term goal has always been to write full time. I've always been like a creative writing area field or person.
I saw your
But
tweet
like
about poems today. You said you're in the process of writing a bunch of poems, right?
well I have a humble brag. I have a lot of published
No,
stuff.
that's why you're here, man. Brag it out. Brag it out.
But I have like, and I get that like, there's a pandemic going on, but I've submitted 16 poems to 4 presses over the last 7 months, and I've just heard like nothing because they take time to get back to you, and also the world kind of ended.
Yeah.
um, but so I'm just like, man, I would just love to hit like one acceptance to get the good chemicals flowing again.
That's
um,
awesome. Congratulations. I mean, I hope it works out. So when you say you um, submitted them, what's the next step? Like, what's the goal of submitting them? You got to talk to me like I'm a dummy because that is a world I don't know anything about.
so yeah, well, so there's a few ways like people who your writers who you go to Barnes and Noble to pick up, which is actually where I work.
Nice. Okay. Well, that
Who
answered the question I was going to ask
Yeah.
you. So there you go.
So like your Stephen Kings and Anne Rice and stuff, you write your book or your poem or whatever, and you send it to an agent, and your agents have like specialty reading areas. So like Stephen King's agent is probably like a fiction horror agent, and you can't like just submit a story to like Random House Publishing. They're just throw it out because they get like millions a day. And so your agent is like someone who they trust to have good taste,
Gotcha.
and they submit it to them, and then they read and decide. um so like step one of making, not always but usually, like becoming like a full-time author is writing something and then submitting it to an agent and getting an agent to represent you. Um,
So it's very similar to sports, is what it sounds like. You can't
yeah.
just, have some guy who no one's heard of, like if like Drew Rosenhaus, for example, is a giant NFL
Mm.
agent. So that guy, everyone wants him to be your agent because if he's your agent, you're gonna get to the NFL. So it sounds like it's kind of a similar structure.
Yeah. And then there's independent journals, which are just people, they get on the internet, they make a website, put up they solicit like submissions from people, and usually they're free or the pay is like, like $10 or something, but it's
Hmm.
something, and that builds up your resume. So I submit to a lot of those while working on writing I've been working on the story for about a year now. After this is the first piece of writing I've done that feels like it's submittable to an agent, like it's at like a level, that's worth sending out.
That's awesome.
So I submit short stories and poems to these small journals. So if they get accepted, you get some kind of notoriety on the internet. But when you submit to the agent, you're like, I have these 20 poems that have been published in a free magazine. Here's where you can check out other writing by me. So they can, you have some kind of reason for them to want to represent
That's really cool. That's awesome.
you.
So, are you're doing both then? I know you said like obviously you're submitting with the agent. Are you also running an independent, publication or like you mentioned, you're kind of like a free writer or what was the term you used again? I'm sorry.
Oh, independent
Yeah, yeah,
journals.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Are you doing both of those, or is there a value to doing both of those, or should you always just stick to one?
Well, I do both. So I Buffalo has like Buffalo's not a big city, but it is a city. Um, it has a weirdly large poetry community for a city. It's big, and I started out just going to open mic nights and stuff there, and then I actually ended up living in Wales for about half a year in the UK.
Really?
Um, and this girl at the University of Buffalo I was friends with had gotten published by a group in Buffalo called Cringeworthy Poetry. And I was like, well, I'm here. I got this like little collection of poetry I've been working on, and I submitted it to them, and they accepted it. And I've been submitting to other places since then. Um, but so like, yeah, the value is like, you want to do. I think you want to do both because one gives you like usually more direct publications, like, within a couple months you've had a
Mhm.
publication, whereas like it takes years usually to write and revise a novel to the point where you're ready to submit it to an agent or a contest where it's
Mhm.
going to get published and you're going to make some money.
That's really neat. So Wales, what brought you there?
Oh, so I'm always looking for a job in the English field.
Mhm.
And like Barnes and Noble is that, but it's also retail, and I'd rather work, in writing itself.
Mhm.
Um, and in Lewiston, back near Buffalo,
Mhm.
I there's a small press there called the Edwin Mellon Press, and I just happened to see in the paper they were hiring, and I went in there and applied, and they called me, and I interviewed with the guy, and he was just like, "Well, you're." I was doing my master's. He was like, "Well, you really need a doctor to do this job because they actually publish like academic papers that don't have like the marketability of like a normal one. Like big like Yale and stuff won't publish these papers through their presses, but they still think they have value, so they publish that stuff." And he's like, "You really need to have like a PhD to be in this job." I uh I was like, all right, I didn't get the job. It was like, thanks for the opportunity. And then like a week later, I was sitting at home and my family was out of town, and he called me and he was like, well, like you were well spoken. We had an interesting conversation about Joseph Conrad's The Heart of Darkness and King Arthur. So what if like I, as like an internship, sent you to my printing press in Wales and you just did a little work there as well as like, got to see the world.
Holy
And I
cow,
went to
that came out of
Wales.
no. So that just came out of left field.
Yeah, yeah. He called me up. And like within like a month, he had given me like £2,000 and a plane ticket and sent me to Wales. And I was there for like
Wow.
5, 6 months, I think it was.
How hard was that decision?
Oh, I had like once like I had like figured out that it was not a joke. I was like, I'm in, no question.
Yeah, I would have thought I was getting punked or something.
Yeah, because it can be a good or bad habit, but like I'll say yes to things for the story of doing it. Like I'm like, I got to go to work at 8 a.m. tomorrow, but my friend wants to go out at 11 p.m. right now. But it'll be an interesting story in a couple weeks.
I'm the same way. I'm the same exact way. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've gotten myself into quite some trouble doing that.
You get real tired, but
Yeah,
you
that's
get some
right.
fun adventure.
Just make it through the day. That's all. Then you're good.
Mhm.
So that's a really crazy story, and it's funny because um, I had Romeo Romero on the last show, and your
Mhm.
two stories couldn't be more opposite. He's like, and that's exactly why I'm trying to get as much of a diverse, as many diverse people on the show as possible because I want to show like I think people when you talk about Twitch, I think people have a misconception about what it actually is. I think people just, it's like, why do you want to watch people play video games? It's like it's much more than that. It's because I like watching people do things that have a passion, whether or not I'm even into that. Like I find myself on Twitch watching people play games who are incredibly good at it, like Call of Duty, for instance. And I'm not just saying this
Mhm.
because Romeo was on the podcast and he's a Call of Duty guy. I have no interest in ever playing that. Like it's not something that interests me whatsoever. But I like watching people who are really good play it because it's like such a like it's just cool to see people do things that they're really good at. So for you, I mean, and it sounds like now that we know a little bit about your background and where you're coming from, and you said even as a kid playing Pokemon, um, Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, these are the two games that you told me you stream pretty much the most. Um, these are like RPG type games, right?
Yeah,
And you said you play them with your girlfriend.
yeah. We Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday we stream together, and then sometimes I'll do like a solo stream on an off day. But we try to play like pick games together and play through them.
That's really cool. And I was talking to Romeo about this in the last show, and tell me if you agree with this or not. But you alluded to earlier, it's like you try to obviously the goal is to like monetize what you love, right?
Mhm.
And I'm a big Joe Rogan podcast guy, and he says a lot of times like find something what you love and then figure out a way to make money doing it. There's always going to be a way if you have a passion for it. And but Romeo said, a big part of it, and I agree with him too. And I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Is he said, you don't only get into it for the money to begin with, though. Because it's
Mhm.
not going to be like, you're not going to hop on Twitch and then within 5 months you're going to be doing Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest full time. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
something that you got to put the work in, and even if it never does pan out for you, at least you're enjoying the ride. Enjoying meeting people. I mean, right now there's a guy in here named Jason. I met him through cycling on Zwift, and I stream with them on Thursday mornings now. He's out of California, and it's just developing this community. It's like it's just these are people that you may never even meet, outside of the digital realm. So
Mhm.
I don't. So I guess going back to the question I was going to ask you is, obviously you enjoy these games. You're not just doing it for the money. So, how's been the rise up to where you are now? What's kind of been the process for you? Obviously you like it. How long you've been playing these, and just a little
Yeah.
background on it.
Um. Well, so Final Fantasy VII is like hands down my favorite game of all time. I have like one of my one of my like formational like stories of my life is that I had played through all of Final Fantasy VII. I got to the final boss, um, and I had to go to school. Like I used to get up at like 5 in the morning before middle school, and I would play Final Fantasy until school, and then come home, and then I would like go play soccer and stuff. Um, and Final Fantasy VII, it's like a 200-hour long game. And I went to school. I came
Holy
home and
cow! Is
someone
that
had.
it's a 200-hour long game? That's
It's probably more like 60 if you know what you're doing. But like I was like 12 and just walking around talking to every single NPC, trying to find every secret.
So let's
Um,
before we move on with your story, I'm super
yeah.
interested, obviously. For those who don't know, one could you just kind of explain the basis of what Final Fantasy VII is? For someone listening that has no idea what it is.
Yeah, it's like it's okay. So it's it's a massive story, but it also was like they just released a remake this year, or part of it, and you start out as this character named Cloud, who has joined up with this group of like ecological terrorists, but they're actually like I don't know, freedom fighters, I guess. So the government of this world has figured out a way to turn this stuff called Mako on the planet into like an actual electricity source. Like they're almost using it like a water wheel and generator, except the Mako is actually like the planet's lifeblood or soul,
Okay.
and they're actually killing the planet faster by using it. And you join up with this group for pay to like bomb these factories to stop them from killing the planet, and it spirals off into this huge story about like the first race of people to or like build humanity on this planet, and then like a weird alien that has come to destroy the planet. It goes all over.
Awesome. So that's a lot to take in right there.
Yeah, yeah. I,
And
it's
I'd
a massive
assume, I mean, have there been seven of them? Is that Final Fantasy
game.
VII or?
Each so there's like Final Fantasy is weird because there's each one is a different universe mostly. There
Okay.
are like some where it's like Final Fantasy VII, like Crisis Core, and that's another story in the same world. But for the most part, like Final Fantasy One and Final Fantasy Two and Three and Four and so on, they're all different universes with
Gotcha.
like similar elements that repeat in some games, but for the most part are not connected at all.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. So, all right. So going back to what we were talking about before. So, pick
Um,
up where you left off. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. No, I went to school that day, came home, someone had broken into our house and stole our PlayStation.
Oh
And
no.
I was like, well, I mean, I'm mad about the PlayStation, but I'm even more mad about the memory card with the
Yeah.
200 hours of data on it. So I went out and bought another one
This
and
is before cloud
replayed the whole
storage.
game again. Yeah, yeah. It was like 1999 or 2000.
Yeah. Memory cards, man.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, you know, I spent so much time playing that game. Um, and then when I was first starting to get really heavily into wanting to like write full time, I was listening to that podcast I mentioned earlier, the
Mhm.
Start With This, and they were talking about how like they're full time writers. You would think like the motivation for them would be to get up in the morning and they like to write, but also they're making like literally all of their money doing it. They would sit down and want to write, but you do anything too long and you're gonna kind of hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Burn out. Yeah.
yeah. So one of the guys was like, "Yeah, I straight up like I was watching PBS one day and this guy was doing wood carving, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take up wood carving as a hobby. I don't try to monetize at all. Just something to get me out of the writing headspace into like a completely new headspace."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, well, let's what do I like doing? I was like, I play video games, I write, and I read. So I've heard about Twitch, so let's just start a Twitch channel. And at the time, I liked the Pokemon trading card game a lot as like a deck building strategy game.
Mm-hmm.
And they have an app, so I started playing it, and I it was weird how fast it happened because I just was streaming and learning about setting everything up, and I would have people come in from time to time and talk to me about like the decks they were in. And then one day like someone who had like 30 viewers just randomly rated me, and after that like I had like 5 to 10 viewers pretty often, so I just hit Twitch affiliate on accident.
That's funny. That's so cool though, and that's a big thing that I'm taking away from my experience on Twitch is it really is such a cool community. It's like it sounds like it's a lot like the comedy community in the sense that like it's not very cutthroat. Everyone's in it
Mhm.
together, and everyone that to this is just my observation, but I feel like if everyone's succeeding, then the whole platform, gets risen
Yeah.
together. It's not like it's not cutthroat, and the whole raid thing is just. I always, not always. I've been starting to really at the end of my streams, just pick someone in the same game or Zwift, and I'll
Mhm.
raid them. Because I think it's kind of like it's a karma thing. You know what I mean? If someone raids
Yeah.
you and you just keep that train going. I love that idea that everyone's so helpful and think about that. I mean, you said that one raid kind of changed your trajectory. And
Yeah.
you don't know if you can do that for someone else. So that's cool. How long did it
Mhm.
take you to become an affiliate from the time that you signed up for your account to the time you became affiliate?
I think it was probably so when I back in Buffalo, my parents my parents have the worst internet of all time. Like I don't know how they survive, except that they're from like a period, kind of before internet was important.
Dial up.
Um yeah, well like they had like the DSL that had like point 0.5 upload. So I really couldn't stream anything that needed more than that. And
Hmm.
so for like a year, I would stream the Pokemon card game on and off while doing school. But once I really settled into it after graduating, it was probably like 4 months
Hmm.
because you need the 3 average viewers, which I think is actually the hardest part of it.
Hmm.
And um, I would have my girlfriend and my friend John pop in, and then just like if one other person showed up by chance, it was like 4 or 5 months. I got the average.
Nice. Yeah, that's where this kind of like developing a schedule comes really into
Mhm.
play, right? I think that's the
Yeah.
first thing that I noticed when I talk to Twitch affiliates is I didn't even ask you. You just right off the bat, you're like, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, me and my fiance are doing it. I'm sure you got times that you do it as well because
Mhm.
you figure out, the people that you're kind of hanging out with when you're streaming, what they like, what they prefer, and because it's all about them, right?
Yeah.
It's all about what they want to watch, what people are entertained by, and what their interests are. So, you said so Tuesday, Thursday. Is that what you said? Or no, Thursday,
Uh,
Saturday, Sunday, right? Is that what you said?
yeah.
That's
Yep. And
that's when you
those.
do your joint with your wife or girlfriend. Sorry, to go
Yeah.
busting rank on you there. My bad. um,
um,
so Dragon Quest, do you stream that a bit as well?
yeah, so Dragon Quest is actually goes back to almost the same time as Final Fantasy, even a little earlier. I got I used to go to it wasn't GameStop at the time. What was it called? EB Games maybe. I went there and I
EB
had
Games, wow.
yeah I had my Game Boy. I still have the same Game Boy from like when I was 5. And
That's
I
good.
went
That should be in a
into
museum.
yeah I went in there and I was just like what game I almost never like buy games anymore based off of trailers. If the art looks cool and it has like semi decent reviews, I'll just like look at the stars. I'll play something, just
Mhm.
play it. Um, so I picked up in the localization was Dragon Warrior instead of Dragon Quest.
Okay.
Actually, to avoid I think getting sued by Dungeons and Dragons at the time. Um, and I bought the game, and I remember like sitting in my parents' car on car rides and just playing through Dragon Quest 1 and 2. And then, fairly recently, about a year ago, I was like, well, I played those. I kind of want to replay them and see how they hold up. And I've set myself like kind of a fun goal of beating. There's 11 Dragon Quests, and I'm working my way through all of
That's awesome.
them. So we actually just finished 11 like 2 weeks ago, and that game was like 160 hours long. Like we literally put like 160 hours into
Whoa. How long does a game like that take? I know, obviously, the hours. So for those who don't know, too,
it.
like that's a statistic. Like for instance, I just beat Pokemon Sword, like the story, and
Yeah.
I think it took like 24 hours. So
Mhm.
160, and I wasn't like trying to speed through it or anything like that. A lot of it's wasted hunting and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I mean, just to put it in perspective, 160 hours. That's work. So how long does that take you? Like how many months did that take you?
I'm trying to think. It's got to be at least 3 we did. Because we were joking about this when we beat it. We were like, I don't remember we started playing this game because we originally were only playing it on Sundays,
Okay.
and we have one viewer who comes in for like every Dragon Quest. Like I streamed Dragon Quest 4 a little bit earlier, and he was there,
That's
like
awesome.
immediately.
These
Um,
guys the word setup.
yeah, and we were just like, man, when did we start playing this game? It was before everything closed down.
Wow. So you've been doing it for a bit then.
Yeah, and most of them, well, I don't know, like Dragon Quest 1 and 3 and 2, I guess. If you know what you're doing, they're like 10 to 15-hour games. Dragon Quest 11 is just long. Like it's like a time travel story. So you get the ending, and it's like, but actually there's a whole other story if you go back in time and do it again.
So
And it's
Dragon
just
Quest, I know. I mean, Final Fantasy is a super popular game.
mhm.
Dragon Quest, I don't know a thing about. So is it an RPG as well, or is it what's kind of? Is there a game you can maybe compare it to that it's like?
It's basically if you take Final Fantasy, like Final Fantasy has gone like originally it was more high fantasy, like we're going on a quest kind of story.
Hmm.
And recently it's kind of turned into like, that fantasy technology story where like there's a mixture of magic and like the world is also kind of similarly technological to ours. Dragon Quest has just stayed that like high fantasy, like you're like the lost prince of a kingdom and you have to reclaim your kingdom or something.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. Now, do you typically gravitate to those kind of games? Are there any other games that you stream in addition to these two?
Yeah, well, we're basically stream any RPG that interests us. So like
Okay.
right now we're doing on Thursdays we're doing I'm trying to think. No, I'm all getting confused now. Saturday is Quest for Glory, which is probably one of my favorite games of all time. I'm just having I challenged my girlfriend to play through them, so I've been watching her play them on Saturdays.
That's cool that you
Uh
guys do that together.
yeah, Sunday is Horizon Zero Dawn. And then what the heck are we doing on Thursday? I can't remember anymore. Everything's blurring together.
My fiance couldn't give a shit about any of the games that I play. So
Mhm.
she actually hates Pokemon because it's the same like 3 songs over and over again that get stuck in her
Oh,
head with.
my mom used to get so mad because she would get the route music from Pokemon Red stuck on her head. And
They're
then
catchy. You can't help it.
yeah, and then I would go around like humming it for the rest of the day because I was like 6.
I'll whistle it and I don't even realize I'm whistling it. It's just like lodged in the back of my head, you know?
It was something I noticed at work a couple weeks ago is like if it's like really busy and stressful, I'll like hum the Pokemon Center music and I just do it like subconsciously.
So what how many hours a week do you typically stream?
Um Thursdays are I just remembered. We're doing Shadow of Mordor, the Lord of the Rings game on there
Oh,
right now
cool.
on
I bet that one's
Thursdays.
popular.
Yeah, it's and we're both huge Lord of the Rings fans. Like we could do a whole other podcast on just Lord of the Rings discussion.
You
Um
want to hear something that you might log off right now? I've never seen one of those movies.
Well, I mean, that's better. Like, I would say read the books first
Okay,
before you
okay.
watch movies. Yeah.
Shocking coming from the guy with his master's in English.
I love the movies, but they're good. They're just not as good.
Gotcha.
But so Thursdays we start at 7, and I run on 4 hours of sleep normally. Um, Whereas my girlfriend needs 7 or 8. So we're streaming from like 7 to 11 or 7 to midnight, depending on how invested in the game we are.
Hmm.
And then Saturday and Sundays we start at 6, and we have no idea when we're ending. Like when we were playing Final Fantasy 15 together, we would literally like it was like we started at 6, and then all of a sudden it was 3 a.m.
What?
Yeah, because this
Wow,
that
that's
game is
crazy.
so many side quests where you're just like, like she'd be like, all right, I'm gonna go make some food, and she'd like just keep doing side quests so you can finish the game eventually.
That's so cool. And that's see, so this is kind of like my idea for interviewing people who are Twitch affiliates. Um, because like for me, I only stream like, let's see, if I do the math, maybe like let's say seven, probably like 9 to 10 hours a week. That's it.
Mhm.
So, because I'm exercising, so like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm whooping my ass on these on these streams. So I stream every morning from 7:30 to 9. Usually it's about
Mhm.
somewhere in that hour and a half ish area. And then Saturdays are usually like my longer ones where I'll do like 2 or 3 hours on there to um, more of a long distance type one. But I guess my goal is to get the word out about like there's so many different ways to become a Twitch affiliate, and
Mhm.
I want to kind of, and that's why I love talking to people like you because your games I don't know anything about, and it's good to talk to people who have crazy different interests because I want to expose this to people. I want to be that central point where people can use me as a resource. And what I'll do is, if you can do me a favor, any like obviously in the show notes after the show I always put in I'll put in your social media channels so people can follow
Mhm.
you if they're interested, if they're hearing like, hey, I like this, maybe I want to get into this, they can see you playing it. But any other like, if you have any, like, I know you mentioned trailers, if there's a trailer that you particularly think would be a good, that represent or a good preview of what the game is actually like, shoot that my way and I'll put that in the show notes too, so if people
All
want to
right.
get into it, they can see what it's like.
Yeah, no
So,
problem.
are there any games that are coming out that you're looking forward to, or are you just so ingrained right now and finishing what you got going on now that you're not really thinking about that?
Well, I actually there's a couple. I was thinking about this actually like right before we started the stream because my like writing genre I prefer horror. So I was like, man, what horror games are coming out for like September, October? Those would be good streaming games. Um, so I don't know of any horror games that are coming out, but I do want to play Call of Cthulhu, the Lovecraft game, because we played like right when I moved down here. One of the first games we played together was called The Sinking City, and it's like an H.P. Lovecraft inspired story. And that game was so like it's a cool game, but like made by a studio that didn't have a lot of money. So
Okay.
like the game is so janky, and it was hilariously fun to play. I would love to find something like in that same vein.
Okay.
But I am excited for uh it's the new Star Wars dogfighting game. I think it comes out in November. Um and I don't know how excited I am for that game, partially because it's made by EA Games, and partially because I think you're gonna need to have like a serious team to play it, because
Gotcha.
it's like I'm a big Star Wars fan, but like you're going to be a member of like a 5-man squadron in space.
Okay.
And you have to like dogfight other teams, so it could be real good or real bad if you don't have someone who wants to play
Right.
with you.
Right. So if you want to get into it, but if you don't have another team that's going to take it as seriously as you do, you're kind of like a man without an island when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, and I'll probably buy it, but then like my both my girlfriend and I are huge Dungeons and Dragons players. So like my Dungeons and Dragons group from Buffalo that I still play with, we'll all probably play it together. But I don't know if I'll stream it because I don't want to put people who don't want to be on Twitch on Twitch.
Right. No, that's respectful. That's nice.
Yeah.
So, do you prefer the card game Do you prefer playing Dungeons and Dragons in person or video game version, or are they just
Um,
very different?
the video games are. I'm always impressed from the D&D video games I've seen because they use the systems of the board game, so like they're so ingrained in it. But it's just not the same because in actual like physical Dungeons and Dragons, you can do literally anything you want.
Okay.
Even to the detriment of like ruining the game for other people. um, but we use a website called Roll20 where they literally just give you like a white board with tiles and you can fill in your own map and everything and play the game as you would on a board but through webcam,
Okay.
which
That's
is
pretty
what we
cool.
yeah we've been I've known the people I play with since elementary school and we've just kept playing. Like we all started playing one year and just have kept going.
Is that a pretty tight community, the Dungeons and Dragons community?
um I mean it's like one of the biggest Twitch channels is Critical Role, where they're incredibly famous just for playing Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, the community, like if you play D&D or any other kind of like Call of Cthulhu is another D&D style game, but for Lovecraft, and you meet someone else, you immediately have like a talking point.
Hmm.
But then there's also like the negative side to it where people get real like the game is very math based and like I'm awful at math. um and people who like they're like why would you do that action when it doesn't maximize this number blah blah blah, and all of a
It's
sudden you're just not having fun because
they're like a
people
human
are
algorithm. Yeah, and they're
yeah
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that. I can see that.
yeah so it can go one of two ways like when you meet people. Usually I've only had positive ones,
Hmm.
but there are like toxic people in any community.
Yeah, that's a shame that that happens, but you're gonna get that anywhere, right? No matter what you're
Yeah,
doing, whether you're playing that or sports or music
yeah,
or whatever, you're always gonna get those shitty people. But you just try to get as little of them as possible, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
um
so are there any days that you particularly don't stream? Like you make it a point, like today we're just gonna chill. This is our headspace day or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's why like Thursday we have the schedule, the Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and my girlfriend does not particularly like Dragon Quest. The games they can be incredibly tedious. But so I've been working like she'll play the newer ones with me, but the older ones are even more like brutally just kind of like do things in the correct order. Um, so on like I've been looking at my schedule, my weekly work schedule, and if I have a day off that's like a Tuesday or a Friday, I'll just be like, all right, I guess on this day I'm gonna play Dragon Quest for 3 hours. Um,
Gotcha, gotcha. That
but
makes
I
sense.
try to not stream like every day of the week just because otherwise I would never get like any writing done or
Hmm.
like I listen to a lot of podcasts, so like I'll have a day where like I get up and write and then I'll go for like a 6 hour walk and just listen to podcasts.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's podcasts change the world, man. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I think what what year is it? 20. So like 4 years ago, I was about about 4 years ago, I really started getting into podcasts, and I was trying to find because there are so many. It's like where the hell do you start?
Hmm.
There's everything about anything that you could find, and but I honestly, I mean, I attribute podcast to my change or like it was a monumental shift in the way that I lived my life because you, for me it's like before the internet I mean I think I'm a little older than you. I'm 34, so I grew up without the internet. Around middle schools I think when it really started to ramp up with AOL and instant messenger and all that stuff. But if you went to school and you were different, you'd come home and you know you just thought you were
Hmm.
different. But
Yeah, yeah.
now you can find and like Dungeons and Dragons, for instance, like if there's a lot of places where you may be the only kid who's playing Dungeons and Dragons and you can get made
Yeah.
fun of, but you can find other people and create this community online where you're accepted because it's other people that share the same passions as you. And I think when I was in my late 20s I started to kind of realize that, if you're surrounded by people, you kind of get not dragged down, but maybe in the direction of what the most common denominator is. And sometimes that can become toxic, and
Yeah.
I think what it really started to understand, like, the power of, scheduling and positive thinking and, kind of
Mhm.
growth mindset and all that kind of stuff. That's what really changed my life. So that I can totally, if yeah, walking around for 6 hours listening to podcasts, I could definitely do that too. I mean, I listen to podcasts from that. There's never any silence. I always have something on that I'm listening to.
Yeah, I just thinking about silence when I was the town I lived in Wales was called Lampeter, and it had 300 people like during the school year. Like they have a big university there, and at the time when students were there, the maximum was 300 people in the city,
Oh my
which
God.
is just it was like the size of Wilson back home. But
Yeah, that's so
um
crazy.
but like you were in the countryside. Like when night came, there was like street lights and then just pitch black darkness. And I remember just being like, man, I can't sleep without some kind of
hmm
sound.
I'm the same way, and I mean, there is something calming about that, I guess, right? But
hmm
maybe it's a little novel. Like, for me, that would wear off real quick. I
Well,
can't.
and like something I've started doing recently, when everything closed down, I was like, I've got time to read more than like the stuff I feel like I should be reading, like within the genres I like. Um, so I looked up the Oxford medieval reading list and the Oxford classics reading list, and I've been working my way backwards through all these like texts that you should read if you're like a full time English literature student. And sometimes I'll be reading like I just read the poem Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and I looked up like English countryside atmosphere on YouTube and put on that soundtrack and read to that.
That's really cool. That's wow. I You put it's cool that you put that together like that. So it kind of gets creates the ambience, like for setting the tone for kind of putting you in the setting of or mind space or head space, I guess, of the poet who
Yeah.
wrote it. That's awesome. I like that.
Well, and it kind of happened because I had watched a documentary about it from the BBC, and they were talking about how it's a weird poem, but the main character Gawain, like he goes questing off into the countryside of Wales in Arthurian times, and the guy, the host was like, this would be where like no one knew what was out there. Like you would have been walking into the densest forest you could find. It could have been anything out there. And when you had then I'm sitting there reading it and like a truck goes by. And I was like, this is weird.
That's still really cool though. So how far along are you on that list?
I have read 8 of 10, I think. I've kind of cheated. I took Latin and French for Latin for 2 years and French for four. Um, and some of them are like you can read the Odyssey, but you have to read like books 1, 3, and 5 in original Latin. I'm like, I'm just gonna read it in English.
Yeah,
This is a little too much work.
could you read a book in Latin, like straight up?
Not I would have to like do some work to get back into it. I'm a big fan of this author Cassandra Clare, and she has a lot of Latin quotes in her books. And I do find that can read most of them, but like usually I read them in like the wrong tense. Like I'll be like, that doesn't make any sense. And I look at it and it's actually like in past tense.
Gotcha. So you can understand what the kind of the topic is or the subject matter, but just like the finite, the structure of the sentences where you kind of get hung up.
Yeah. And I think it's a product of like I took Latin and I took 4 years of French. And I do French Duolingo every day just to keep my brain active in that mindset. But then my dad is from Budapest, Hungary, and I started studying that for fun too. So my brain is kind of just seeing how different languages, even if they're not in the same language grouping, like Latin's Romance, Hungarian is Finno-Ugric, you can kind of
Hungarian.
see where stuff mixed together. Yeah.
Yeah. Is Hungarian, is it like the same alphabet as, is it like
Um,
Russian is just, crazy different, is it?
Cyrillic.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have their own alphabet, but I don't think they use it like at all.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because like I've looked it up and I was like, I don't know what that means. But like on Duolingo, I had to download a new keyboard because they have accent markings that like the normal keyboard doesn't.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I was doing Duolingo for a bit here in so I work for the soccer team here in Dallas,
Okay.
and I there's a lot of Hispanic culture here, so I was doing Duolingo to learn Spanish, and
Hmm.
that's an awesome app. I mean, I do it.
Yeah.
I go to the gym, then I sit in the sauna, and I do 15 minutes of Duolingo in the sauna every day, and
Hmm.
I learned it pretty quick. I mean, not that I could speak it or anything, but like I was getting to the point where I could at least understand what people were saying, So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a cool app. I like it a lot.
Yeah. We were my girlfriend and her family and I were supposed to go to Quebec, like literally when everything closed down, like two
Oh,
weeks later, and we would have gotten stuck like in Quebec.
could you imagine that? Have you ever been there?
Not to Quebec. I've been obviously Toronto in that area.
Hmm.
Um,
Quebec's awesome. So I took French, growing up, middle school, high school, because
mhm,
silly me, I'm like, I'm from Buffalo, and Canada's right there, and they speak French, so I'm definitely going to use
yeah,
this.
wrong
And
coast.
yep, and we went all the way up to Quebec for like seventh and eighth grade because they exclusively speak French, and it's cool. They got the a wall around the city that it's like because
Mhm.
it was a fort, so it's still like there's old Quebec City and New Quebec City. And Old Quebec City is still you enter, it feels like you're entering like Europe. It's really cool, like an
Yeah.
old European town. I mean, you'll probably feel like a lot like Wales. It's
Mhm.
definitely got that old vibe. Not like Toronto, where everything's brand new.
My dad always told me because when he would go back to Budapest occasionally when my grandma was still alive, and they would be like kind of lost in the city, and you would just end up talking to people, and they'd be like, yeah, back in like 1949 there was a bomb that landed on this church here and just never exploded. Like
That's
you're
so
like,
crazy.
yeah, and you're like, there's nowhere like that in America. Really.
No, no, they find it too. Like when they go excavating, for like
Mhm.
when they go to build like a new building, yeah, they just all these. It's crazy. When I went so a couple years ago, I was in the World Championships for triathlon in Rotterdam,
Mhm.
and we go to Rotterdam, and everything is brand new. Like it had a very Toronto-ish vibe. It's
Yeah, yeah.
very modern. Everything's, and then you get on a train, and I think it was like a 40-minute train ride from Rotterdam to Amsterdam, and you go to Amsterdam. Have you ever been to Amsterdam?
No, no.
Okay, so when you get to Amsterdam, it's as it was, like you could tell it's
Mhm.
old, 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 old. And
Yeah, yeah.
the reason being is I didn't know this, but Hitler wanted to make Amsterdam like the crown jewel of his empire. So
Interesting.
he bombed the shit out of Rotterdam. Like he basically leveled it. That's why everything's
Mhm.
new because they had to rebuild it. Whereas Amsterdam, he left it alone. And it's like
Yeah, yeah.
that is some crazy history right there.
Mhm.
That I don't know that when you're actually like experiencing that kind of history that in real life that really hits you.
Mhm.
That's some serious stuff.
I've told people like, if you're traveling, like sometimes you can just feel that a place has history. Like, obviously everywhere has history, but like if you go to like Gettysburg, you can just kind of aside from the signs and everything, you can just kind of tell something happened there. And like even that pales in comparison to like going to like Wales or England or something. Like when I was in uh Lampeter, I was like, this is an old city. I can just tell being here.
Hmm. That's what's so funny. We talk about that a lot because I live in downtown Frisco, Texas, and
Mhm.
this place. I mean, there was nothing here 15, 20 years ago. So, our right in our Frisco Square, there's a statue of a train, a guy hanging off a train, and it's like the first train to ever come to Frisco was in 1902. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's nothing. That's a blink of an eye
Mhm.
in terms of history, and is it in 1902? Buffalo was popping.
Yeah,
um,
yeah. We still had iron then.
yeah, that's right. But it's cool because it's the perspective of the way that as you go to those European places and you're like, Oh, this is, you talk about like the Asian, like China is just
Yeah, yeah.
thousands. You know,
You actually just reminded me there was a girl who was in one of my like group projects in my masters, and she was from China. And our class, like a lot of education classes, are actually discussions of like economics and political like differences between income brackets and stuff, because you have to like teach to the poorest of your students because they don't have all the accessibility that like a middle class student would have.
hmm
Um, and she was like, yeah, all this like, she was like, there's a lot of stuff going on in America during one of our classes. She's like, you got like the race discussions and everything. And she's like, I'm not saying China's perfect, but all I'm saying is like, this stuff comes and goes, but like, your America's a baby, like
yeah.
compared to China. And I think you're going to see things level out in like the next like 50 years. And then you're going to get to a point where like, it's obviously still happening and still important, but not like the front page news every morning.
We're still figuring this out. We're still figuring this out, and I mean, like you said, China's been around for thousands of years. They're playing the long game. We're still
Yeah.
the American experiment is alive and well. As you can see, is
Mhm.
this has been a crazy year, man. It's just, I mean,
Oh,
obviously.
yeah.
Speaking
Yeah.
of that, how is it in Georgia with everything going on right now? Is it I
Um,
mean, you guys were like the first to open, I think, and we followed, we were right behind you.
yeah. I haven't looked at the numbers recently because I mean, I don't know how political I want to get on this
No,
podcast.
no, no, and I don't mean to
Yeah.
get political. I don't mean to
Yeah.
get political.
But like, the governor of Georgia sued the Atlanta mayor because she tried to mandate masks in public. And then he backed off. But like most of Georgia just seems to have given up on it. And I
That's
think we
crazy.
were like in the top three, like skyrocketing states, if I'm remembering correctly.
It's like
Um,
Georgia, Texas, Florida, Arizona. It's always,
yeah.
you see the same. My best friend's getting married in November, and I'm
Mhm.
his best man, and I'm praying that they lift this 2 week quarantine thing because, like, who's the?
Yeah.
I can't just go up there for a month. You know what I mean?
That I actually, like we had been like my girlfriend and we've been quarantining. I'm working again, but like my work is real good. Like you have to have a mask on. We have like cleaning wipes everywhere and
Mhm.
stuff. Um, and the my friends back home, we have a 4th of July thing almost every year. And I was just like, I asked everyone, I was like, well, if I come to Buffalo, like, are you guys comfortable? Like, I've been in like, one of the highest states. And they were like, yeah, you like, you're clean, like you're probably not.
You're not being
You might
you're
have
not
been
being a dummy about it.
exposed.
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
So we had like, it was only like it's like 5 people, and we it was weird. It was like a socially distant barbecue.
Yeah.
um,
Weird
but
times.
yeah, I got in to Buffalo 4 hours before they put that quarantine thing
Are you
on.
serious?
So
Oh my
like
God.
I was like, I mean, I don't know. Am I like, do I have to quarantine? And no one ever said anything, so I went about my life.
Hit a buzzer beater.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it was
I mean my mom was gonna come down in here and visit last week, but she's older and
mhm.
she's like and she's a teacher too, so she didn't know
Yeah.
how that's gonna go up there. So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Texas is like where I live. It's luckily hasn't, Collin County is called.
Mhm.
Really hasn't really never experienced a massive surge of anything. So I mean, everyone obviously
Yeah.
is still careful and everything's, there's no like bars open and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
not it never got as crazy as, like Buffalo did, where they just completely, shut it in
Yeah.
place. Pretty wild. Um, so what I was gonna ask you too is, are there any so like I guess I'll frame it this way. For me, like, I'm an athlete, I train on Zwift, but like guilty pleasures for me would be like Pokemon Sword and I like Paper
Mhm.
Mario, the Origami King, that new one that came out. Like I pre-bought it and
Yeah.
I play stupid games like that. Those are like my guilty pleasures. Do you have any games that are you think that like maybe you wouldn't come off as liking, you know what I mean? But like if you do you have any games that you play where people would be like, "Wait, what? Do you have any guilty pleasure games like that?"
I'm just looking at like the shelf of like games we have over here. I don't really know, like maybe Kingdom Hearts, but that's also like in the Final Fantasy vein.
My
Um,
one of my best friends is constantly telling me to play that. He's a big fan of that game. That's like
you
with
know,
the Disney characters, right?
yeah, it's Final Fantasy meets Disney, and I have played all of them, and I still can't tell you what the story is. Like, my girlfriend for Christmas last year got me like the pre-order like special edition Kingdom Hearts 3 because I had beat the first two Kingdom Hearts in like 2004 or something, and like there was literally like a 15-year break between 2 and 3.
Really? That's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, and it had been in development the whole time. Like they were working on it. And so when it came out, like when she got that for me, I replayed one, and I went to GameStop and bought this like special edition of one that has like there's Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, and then there's a prequel game on the DS. It had like all of them on one disc. I think there's 10 Kingdom Hearts games total, and all of you have to play all of them to understand three. Um, but
Good to know. Good to know.
I had sent her a video, and it was like, a 2-hour video called like Kingdom Hearts Explained. And she was like, I have no idea what this game is about. And I could probably tell you like 60% of the story of the game because the game is just insane. Like, it's fun to play, but the story is just bizarre.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's a popular one, and it's funny because the guy who always tells me to play it, he's a huge Call of Duty guy. So like, that's why when
Mhm.
he told me to play it and I looked it up, I'm like, this does not seem like you. But he's like, dude, it's fun. You got to play it. So I'm always
Yeah.
looking for new game. So what systems do you play these on?
I've always been a PlayStation person. We have a Switch. Speaking of Pokemon, we have a completed Pokemon or Pokedex.
Oh,
um,
hell yeah, I'm trying to get
yeah.
there.
um, but we also recently bought a gaming PC because the way we were streaming when we first moved down here is I had a capture card, we had our TV, and then I had like a laptop mounted on a desk, and we were using the laptop webcam, and then chat and Streamlabs open on that, and then the play like a wire running through the middle of the room to the laptop.
That's
So
basically what I'm doing now. So yeah,
yeah,
that's
so we bought like a real computer, and if it's like a PlayStation only thing, I'll buy it on that system.
mhm.
But mainly we use PC now. Like we're doing Horizon Zero Dawn because they just released it on PC, and it's cool, but it's like one of the glitchiest releases I've ever played.
Well, and I think that was the biggest. I mean, for me at least, is I I I I love playing video games. I've been playing video games. Not, I mean, that's actually Grand Theft Auto 5 is what got me into triathlon because you can do a
Yeah.
triathlon in Grand Theft Auto 5.
Mhm.
And as I'm doing it, I'm like, I was the captain of my swim team at Ken Easton High School, and I'm like, so I can swim and I like running. Like anyone can figure out how to ride a bike, right? And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
maybe, but it's funny because video game inspired me to do this thing that I'm super passionate about now, and I think video games we're at the point in their development where it goes well above and beyond just it being a time waster. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah, yeah.
it's just there's so many inherent values to and like so many benefits that you can get. The sense of community that you get from joining like Twitch and things like that, or not even being a streamer, just joining and being a part of people's streams. Like you said, that one guy who always is waiting for you to come on, like you said earlier today.
Mhm.
You hop on, like you're making that guy's life better. That kid, you don't you may or may not know the guy. I don't know your relationship with him, but maybe that guy he wasn't in a good spot, but he gets to look forward to you streaming every day, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
inherent values to this kind of stuff, and um,
Mhm.
I just think this whole I love this movement, and especially with everyone staying at home now, and God knows when this is going to end. I think it's just growing and growing, and um, my hope is to inspire others to kind of get on the platform who, if you have any interest in any games, to find a streamer that you like. Everyone has such different personalities, and
Mhm.
engage, and it's just such a fun way to spend time. I don't think it's a time waster at all. And
Yeah, yeah.
I so I guess this is a long way to ask this question, but for someone who enjoys Final Fantasy VII or Dragon Quest or any of the other games that you've mentioned, and they want to get into streaming, what advice would you give?
Um, well, I think the first step is you have to invest in your internet. That's like the biggest thing. Um, like the big things I think to start out with, you don't need a face cam really. Like I like people who have them, but um, your audio and your video quality are like the most important things. Um, and then I would like you recommended, find streamers you like, and like borrow ideas from them, see how they like set up their streams and stuff, because that's how like I started improving my streams at first. Was I watched this partner named Northern Lion, and his like banter style while he plays is basically what started me like just kind of playing games by myself and thinking aloud, and it's turned into
Yeah.
my own kind of thing.
I was talking to Romeo about that too. Is I think when people comment on your stream,
Hmm.
it's really important to engage with them and acknowledge them and interact with
Yeah.
them. And there's like this guy I listen to sometimes. His name is what's his name? Eagle Garrett. And I just stumbled on this guy. Like I don't even know what the hell game he plays, but he has a lot of YouTube videos on about getting set up. So I leaned on him in developing my stream and everything. And one of the things he really hammers home, which I really agree with, is when people talk, don't say like if someone asks you a question and say it's a yes or no question, like you know, do you like this game? Don't just say like yes. It's
Yeah.
yes, I love this game. I got into it because blah blah, and like people like to hear your story. People like to know about the person playing the game because anyone
Mhm.
can just watch anyone play a game, but it's developing that relationship on a personal level with people, through the
Mhm.
platform. I think is a big help.
Yeah, I think because we have a couple people who are like who come in and out, and they're like new streamers. Like this one person I know who has they watched another streamer who rated us once, and they ended up in our chat, and we've like we're they got into streaming because they saw us doing it, and we were like trying to kind of coach them through it. But I think one of the mindsets people that's like the most toxic to new streamers is like, I'm gonna have viewers day one or numbers,
Hmm.
like it's you spend a lot of time just like talking to yourself until someone just stumbles in and hangs out with
That's exactly right.
you.
Especially, I mean, those first, like you said, the hardest requirement is getting that average of 3 viewers. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the struggle. It's if you get one person come in and out, and you can't get discouraged by that because you got to understand
Hmm.
that there are so many people streaming and there are so many options for people to watch that one person, treat them like gold. They're giving you their
Yeah.
attention. They could go anywhere and they're here to hang out with you. So, make
Hmm.
sure that you're making it worth their time because everyone's time is valuable and you want to respect that.
Yeah, and then I mean, like you also, I think you want to consider like the kind of stream you want to have, because like there are people who are like Call of Duty streamers or whatever, and they don't have a face cam, they don't have a microphone, but they're just you watch them because they're so good at the game. It's
Hmm.
like almost superhuman, and they literally can't talk while they're playing stuff like that. Like people who play the Super Mario Maker game,
Oh my
they
God.
they
Those
take
people are ridiculous.
yeah, it takes so much concentration that like to talk to you would make the stream actively worse. So
Yeah.
like, do you want to have like a stream that's like about being like as perfect as possible in a game, or is it a community based thing? Like for us, what I've been working on recently a lot of is the channel points. I've been trying to make
Yes.
those more interactive.
Yes. Yes. That's a good point. And so I was actually going to ask you about that. What kind of things, and this is just me looking for advice. um, what things do you do to interact with the people? And obviously, me riding a bike is a lot different than people watching you play
Mhm.
Final Fantasy. But what are some things that you do that are engaging with your viewers?
Well, usually, like one of my big things is I don't like basically like always be talking, or unless like it's like drowning out like an important part of the game.
Hmm.
Um, But basically, if someone comes in, like if they say something, I always greet them, ask like, just something about them, like, how's your day going or whatever, just to start like a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But we have recently set up channel points, so we've got a bunch. So we've got like one is just like kiss, marry, kill, so someone could just give you 3 random people like that game.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Um, we've also got give us a conversation topic, make me choose, um, pet cam. So our cat, one of our like our most popular emote is a like little anime cat, a version of our cat that just says yes on it. um, so like we have like she'll come if you whistle. So we have a pet cam one. So like looking back from our last stream, like someone asked us, this forgive us a conversation topic that asks, discuss Twitch's double standard on the clothing terms of service for men and women.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. And we got into a whole debate, not really a debate, but just a discussion about they had been watching a viewer or a streamer who was playing like a competitive game and they won a match, and I guess the streamer like ripped their shirt off literally like in half. And then they were like, that's really cool. It was like a funny moment, but like what if that was a woman?
Right. That whole Alinity debacle,
Mhm.
right? Wasn't that a big thing?
Yeah.
That's interesting though, because that's what I'm trying to do right now is so on my channel, I have, do you know what stream avatars are? Have you heard of these?
Yeah, the little game at the bottom kind of.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So I have those, like they're all dinosaurs,
Mhm.
and so in the middle of a stream, I'll just drop a bunch of stars, and you got to exclamation point jump to catch
Yeah,
the
yeah.
star, and the stars are points, and same thing you're talking about. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
so it's just a way to get more points as opposed to just sitting there watching. But like
Yeah.
what I'll do is what I'm integrating now is like sprint as hard as you can for 30 seconds, or
That's what I was thinking
yeah,
when
yeah,
you
yeah. So
yeah.
I'm starting to, but I love the topics. That's really smart. So I'm gonna start doing it.
Mhm.
I'm gonna steal that from you. So thank you. That's why I asked.
Yeah. And like all I did was like go into other people's streams and I would check out their channel points and I was like, that's kind of cool. Like,
Yeah, yeah. You can
um,
definitely get a lot of good ideas from people, and
mhm,
that's why like
mhm,
what we do is completely different, but there's
yeah.
a lot of commonalities. And that's why I like
Mhm.
asking people because people are so creative.
I was and the person who asked the double standard question actually they stream too and we've like been like, getting like a rapport and they do a lot of art which is really cool. So I've actually been getting into art because I've been watching them do art. I like designed our most recent emote just to see if I could do it.
Those art streams are
Um
cool.
yeah. Um but like they had one that was like a speed sketch. So like you give them like a character to draw and paint, and they just do it as fast as they can. So you get like a
Ah, that's
goofy looking
cool.
painting.
Yeah.
So like I have one we did last week. Oh, it was someone said draw buff Kirby, and then we were playing Quest for Glory, which is old 80s and 90s game I love. And then someone else was like, draw buff Kirby who had swallowed the hero from Quest for Glory. And we drew it, and it's actually like the most cursed image I've ever seen. Um, I I came out of our bedroom the next morning, and my girlfriend was like, "I turned off the other monitor because I didn't like the way it was looking at me." And I'm like, "This should be an emote now. It's absolutely the scariest thing I've ever seen."
That's so you make your own because I just went on Fiverr and I worked with an artist to help me develop mine because I have zero skill when it comes to that. You make your own
Uh,
though?
well, our first three, I paid like one of my friends was like, "Yeah, my friend does this art," and they made ours. And then we hit if you hit 15 subscriber points, you get an extra emote slot, and then like I think it's every 10 you get another one. Um, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try and draw my own emote, and because in Dragon Quest there's these little things called slimes that are like the basic enemies. They're like super cute, but they also try to murder you. um, I drew my own slime, and I like learned how to do like the graphic line art, and colorization, and everything. And it's just like a crying slime, and it says like "Rest in Peace" or "R.I.P." above it. So
Th-
like if we died, it'd be an emote
it's
to you.
topical to the game. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so
So
cool.
yeah, we have the slime, we have our cat, and then because I like horror a lot, we have a waving, winking Cthulhu octopus.
What
And
program do
then
you use for that?
it's a program called I used actually it took me a while. So first I draw it by hand, and then I import that into Microsoft Paint, and Microsoft Paint has this like bendy line tool. So I take a black line and outline it all. And then there's another program called GIMP, which is like graphic information something processor. And I use that for like colorization and stuff because you can like look up the hex code. Like I looked up the actual color like HTML code of the slimes in the games and then
Hmm.
like imported that into the program to get the right color.
That's awesome. That's pretty damn creative. Good on you.
It's been like it's actually become like a meditative thing for me now. Like every day I try to draw one thing.
That's
So
that's really cool. So
like today I drew Baba Yaga's hut.
you are very self-aware, and that's cool. It's like what I don't think you're gonna get that burnout like you were talking about earlier. I think you're doing a lot of things the right way. It sounds like.
Yeah, I just try to, and like you can kind of tell when you're not feeling it.
Yeah.
So that's why like if we need a day off, you just take a day off.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I will tell you, Ian, we've been on for over an hour now, hour and 20 minutes ish. Pretty
Yeah.
crazy. So it's Friday. I know you probably got to get going or streaming. You streaming tonight?
No, well I streamed earlier. I'm just gonna probably read some more tonight.
Take it easy. Well, you deserve it,
Yeah.
man. Thanks for coming on the show. And I always ask, is there anything, maybe any self promotion or any topic we didn't cover that you think would be, relevant that we didn't get out?
Well, I actually, so when we were talking earlier, we went off on a tangent. It's a good tangent. I do edit for a Buffalo-based literary magazine called Variety Pack.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Um,
Yeah.
so the whole idea was like instead of most magazines are like this is like a fiction magazine or like a horror or a fantasy one, and we wanted like we like try to make every once in a while like a variety pack of like fiction stories, poetry, art, whatever.
Hmm.
So just thought I'd throw that out there. If you go on Twitter, we have and type in variety pack. I think it's variety pack 2
Send me the
is
link.
the
Send
Twitter.
me the link and I'll
Yeah,
put it in the show notes when we're done, all right?
yeah.
And
We
so
have
people can check it out.
we have another issue coming out on the 29th of all. It's a all black cast of writers and artists.
I love it. I love it. Well, yeah, send me the link for that too, so people can check that out too. It'll all be in the show notes.
Mhm.
And then the last thing, most important question. Um, what are you going to be doing when the Bills win the Super Bowl this year?
Oh, honestly, like I'll probably be running down the street in my favorite or my Bills jersey. um, we have a Bills and Sabres flag on our balcony, and I actually like at least once a day someone walks by and yells like "You're in Atlanta" at our door.
Hey man, there's Buffalo or Atlanta has a lot of people from Buffalo, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a Bills backers bar like 45 minutes from my apartment or something.
So, last story I'll leave you with here. You know Pancho Villa, that
Oh yeah.
super fan. So, he's from here, and
Mhm.
when me and my fiance first moved here, it was literally the week we moved here. Like this is literally the 2-year anniversary. I think was like 2 days ago of us moving to Dallas, and so we moved here and we're like, let's go check out the Bills backer bar in Dallas. And there's a preseason game, so we go to watch it, and we sit down, and obviously we don't know anybody. Our first time in Texas was in the U-Haul coming over the border. We never even came here to visit it. We just moved here.
Yeah.
So we get to the backer bar, and the we're sitting there, and this guy comes up to us and he's like, welcome to the Bills backer bar. You guys new here? And he knew right off the bat that we weren't regulars. And we're like, oh, this must be like the mayor of, Bills backer land here, and
Yeah.
um, just super nice guy, whatever. We're like, yeah, I moved here to work for the soccer team, and he's like, oh, I'm actually going on Saturday. And I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, well, I can hook you up. I'll see, see if I can get you maybe a hat or something like that. Well, we get talking more. It was Pancho Villa. So
Oh yeah.
ran the
Hmm.
Bill's Backer Bar here and was the nicest guy in the world. And I told our social media lady, or director of social media and marketing and all that, I told her that he was coming, and he brought his Bills headgear and he wore it to the game. She interviewed him on the broadcast, and I have a picture with him, and we kind of developed a friendship from there. So it was
Yeah.
cool. I got to know him, and um, his family is just so sweet, and they're still at the Bills Backer Bar, and we actually went to the playoff game in Houston this year and saw his family there, and she
Hmm.
came over and said hi to us. So it's cool. The Bills are just such a cool, unique. I think it's just a unique fan base compared to other ones. So it's
Like Buffalo sports has one of the weirdest like intense fan bases where they demand good teams, but also will welcome literally anybody.
yeah, and they're never good.
Like
That's the thing.
yeah, like I don't know if you've ever been to Mesque back in Buffalo, the
Oh
soccer
yeah,
bar.
oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
like you go in that place and you immediately are friends with like literally everyone in the
Yep.
bar.
My
There's no question.
so FC Buffalo. No, obviously working for the Major League Soccer team here. FC Buffalo. I have like kind of developed an interest in that, and the owner Nick Mandola,
Hmm.
we've actually become friends because I hooked him up with they were doing an auction for FC Buffalo going overseas, and um, I brought him back some stuff from FC Dallas here, and he was like so grateful. So I have a couple FC Buffalo jerseys now, and but that's just the way it is in general. I mean, Buffalo, I miss it, man. I mean, it's home's always going to be home.
Now that you say it, that's how you found me. Is I had taken a picture in my FC Buffalo jersey when they were playing
That's
last month,
right. You were at a bar or
and
something, right?
I was at work.
You're at work. Okay, yes,
Yeah,
yes. That's
and I was just like,
exactly.
repping Buffalo in downtown Atlanta.
I
Yeah.
think that is literally the perfect way that we can end the show right now. Is that we brought it full circle. We
Well,
started
we
with not
did.
knowing, and then that is awesome. That is great. Well, Ian, thanks for your time again, and send me those links. I'll put them in the notes when we're done. And
All right.
yeah, looking forward to I'm obviously following you on Twitch, and looking forward to
Mhm.
you and your girlfriend streaming. Maybe we can do one of these with you and your girlfriend on.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for having me.
All right, have a good one. Thanks for
Yeah.
tuning in, everybody.